good. Make sure the lock washer is fully engaged. And we're going to do this one and the other side. Make sure your legs are locked when you're moving the printer onto the stand and anytime you're actually working with the printer and the stand. Okay, we're back. We've got the printer securely on the stand. In the manual, it's going to say to assemble the paper basket next. I usually do the paper basket last because when you're removing all this tape and trying to work around it, it sometimes gets a little bit in the way. So I usually do the paper basket last. Once the printer's in its final position, it's a little easier to do. You can do it either way, but I prefer to get everything off. So there's going to be a lot of packing tape on this printer, and it's basically to keep the components from sliding around. So we're going to start to remove this blue packing tape, and you're going to see it's kind of everywhere. The most important piece, though, is the head locking mechanism. So there's going to be a white card that sits on top of the display for the printer. The cover opens once you get the tape off. So we're going to pull 3 pieces of tape off the front cover. We'll open the cover, and then you slide the string out from underneath, and down here there's going to be a small plastic mechanism that you'll remove. You'll kind of wiggle it a little bit and then pull it towards the front of the printer. And I usually say to save this in case you've ever got to really move the printer from one location to another. So that's how that assembly looks. So we're going to kind of keep this off to the side, but we'll go and keep taking the tape off. You're going to find that there's a lot of tape on the machine, but it's really just to protect the machine from getting scratched up or damaged during shipping. While we have the cover open, you're going to see your head assembly, your feeder lines for the ink. This is a 10+1 color machine, so it gives you the HDR, the high dynamic range. So once you've got all the tape off the inside and the head locking bracket, you can go ahead and close the cover. And then you're going to basically take the protective coverings off the paper area, or the ink area right here. And you're going to have 2 ink doors that we're going to remove the paper from and the tape from. And these are, if you're used to the older style Epsons, these actually lock from electronically lock, so they're not like the old 9 series, 9600, 9800. So these you don't just pull open. So we're going to remove the tape on the left side of the printer. Then we're going to move up to the actual paper area where we load the rolls of paper. You'll pull your tape off of there, and then this will open up. Once this is opened up, you're going to find another locking mechanism in here, a protective mechanism. It's to keep the right side and the left side for the paper spindles from hitting each other. So you'll go in and you'll pull that out. It's a piece of foam. I usually will retain this also in case there's a movement of the printer. Not like one side of the room to the other, but if you're moving to a new office across town. So we're just going to remove the tape. You'll see a lot of blue tape in here. So just anywhere you see blue tape, time for the blue tape to come off. The last amounts of blue tape are in the back of the machine, and you'll see there's 6 of them, and they're protecting the plastic roll guides. So we'll pull those off also. In the rear of the machine is going to be where your USB connection or your Ethernet connection is, as well as the AC power. Once again, this is a fully capable 7900, so if you upgraded the full EFI version, you're allowed to put a Spectra on here, which will connect in the back, as well as do certified proofing. For this demonstration, we're not going to do that. We're going to go straightly with the rip that comes with it, which is a full EFI Express rip. So now that the tape is all off the machine, we are ready to basically start to charge up the ink cartridges. Is what we're going to do next, and we're going to spare you from the shaking of them. You'll shake the cartridges before you put them in, but I'll open one and shake it to show you how, but then we're going to load the printer up. So at this point, the printer's ready to have power applied to it, so we can open the ink doors and then start the process of charging the printer up. So now is the time you can unlock the casters and move the printer around. Not too fast, but it rolls pretty easily. So you can get at the back connections if you need to as we're firing it up. We'll install the AC cord next. The AC cord came inside the box as you pulled out the manual. And we'll get that, and I'll show you that, and it's a pretty easy way to assemble that. Okay, we're back, and we're going to take the power cord, and we're going to power up the printer. One special note, it's a pretty substantial investment, any of these printers, from a 79 to a 99 to a GS6000 to any type of inkjet printer. I strongly recommend to at least get a professional grade surge suppressor and power conditioner, or at least a UPS. These are very low wattage, they're Energy Star efficient, so you can get by with about a 1500 watt UPS, which will keep this thing running. You know, the ink is constantly, basically when you power off and power on, the ink's constantly going through a cycle, and it's really cost effective to put this on a UPS, or at least the minimum of the surge protector. So we're going to put the AC cord in. Plugs in the exact back of the middle of the machine towards the back. On the right side you'll see the power cord. Input side, and then we're going to plug in the output side. So I'm going to plug it into our surge protector. And then surge protector into the wall. And this will actually condition the line also. It's a pretty efficient little unit. They used a lot on higher end color copiers, but really minimum expense. I mean, you're looking at maybe 10% of the cost of what it's going to save you in ink alone, just powering on and off the printer. So the printer's going to fire up. Press the on button, the Energy Star symbol is going to come up. There's a plastic protective coating over the display, so you kind of want to peel that off. That's like the last little piece of it. And then under, you see, once the printer powers up, it's going to say install the ink cartridges. Now, how we install the ink cartridges, there's going to be a button in the lower left hand corner to the right side of the display. You press that button, it's going to bring up a menu to ask you what ink doors you want to open. We're going to open both the left and right covers. I'm going to press the button, and you're probably going to be able to hear a vacuum kind of kick in. And it'll take an initial little bit of time in the first power up to do this. Then it's going to pop the doors, and the doors are really sensitive, so when you come down, just make sure you kind of put your thumb inside and pop the door out, or you'll close the door and you'll have to go through the open door cycle. So we're going to open both the left and right door. As you're going to be able to see, it'll tell you exactly which ink by color and then by the name of the color goes in which slot. And the slots, unlike the older printers, that if you use a larger capacity cartridge, it doesn't stick out of the printer. So you're going to see basically the same slot will be for the 150 to 350 of the 700 milliliter cartridges. If you're in a high volume environment, the 700 milliliter cartridges are the way to go. They're about 20 to 30% less expensive per milliliter than the 150. So at least stay in the middle range if you possibly can. So I'm going to put one ink cartridge in and spare you the shaking expense. So you want to shake the cartridge a little bit before you put it in. And there's an expiration date on the cartridge. You know, they're usually at least a year ahead of when the printer comes in, but it's just a good idea to shake it. On the top of the bag on the cartridge, there'll be a slit, and this is basically where you easily can tear it open. We'll take the cartridge out. You're going to take the cartridge label side out, and you're going to correspond it with the color. They'll go in a little slot, and you'll feel it click in. So you click it in or click it out for removal. So we're going to load all the cartridges by color, and then we'll take you through the charging of the printer. The charging of the printer you don't want to be interrupted, or it's a waste of ink. So what we're going to do is we'll charge the printer. It usually takes between 10 minutes or so to charge up the printer, and then we'll be ready to put the paper in, and we'll do a head alignment, and we'll do a nozzle check also. And that's kind of the setup of the printer. Then we'll go through the little putting the basket on finally, so we're not walking in the way of it. And then we'll be done with the setup of the 7900 side of the 7900 CTP solution. Okay, now we've got our ink cartridges loaded, and they're all clicked into place. Once again, one click out, one click locks in place. Once you close your doors, the machine's going to take off and start charging. So I've already closed my left side door. Close your right side door. It'll click once and then lock it into place. You'll hear the printer start to kind of feel that the cartridges are in. It's going to go through a cycle, a startup cycle where it's basically doing its internal diagnostics. then it's going to take off and start charging the cartridges. You'll hear the pump kind of start to come and play. A little bit of a noise there you'll hear, and it's basically starting to kind of get the air out of the lines, and now it's going to start to charge the printer up. So it'll take it about 10 minutes to charge up. Once again, don't interrupt this, don't turn the power off. Very important that it gets to charge. It'll start the whole sequence over again. So it'll go through its little internal diagnostics. Head will go back and forth a couple times. And I think you can see that in the frame. Underneath the cover, you'll see the head going back and forth. And then it'll start to charge. So we'll spare you the 10 minutes of charging, and then what we're going to do is I usually, while the ink is charging, I will put the paper tray on, the paper catch basin. So I'm going to do that. We're going to swap to that part of the presentation, and that is in the book on how to assemble the paper catch basin. So we'll do that now while it's charging up. So now we're going to assemble, while the printer's charging, this is when I like to assemble the catch basin. The catch basin's got a nylon sleeve with then two plastic guides. The key is the plastic guides will come up towards you and then towards the back of the printer, so it'll look like this, flattened, straightened out. Then we basically take the tape off the two side brackets. These have a little white line on them, and the white line corresponds with how far down they've got to go. When you get the bracket in place, there's a pin assembly. And the pin assembly will go in, and you're going to kind of click it into place. So if you got the white line lined up right, it's pretty easy to do. So we're going to do those on both sides. That's the first step. Then we're going to unpeel the guides here. I usually get the back of the assembly set up first. So in the back, you'll take one of the round rods, and there's a little small sleeve in the back that you'll see that the rod actually fits in most of the time. And that'll slide through. And then in the back you'll see a half moon shaped assembly basically on the bracket that the rod clicks into. So I'm going to scoot behind the printer. Put those in, and then there's two little eye loops that you'll hook to the back of the bracket. Once again, this is in the manual. Then we're going to basically take the next piece, round metal bracket. There's a sleeve about even with the printer leg support underneath. Of course, if I wasn't on the camera, this would take about 30 seconds. So since I'm on the camera, it's going to take like 30 seconds. So that slides through. You'll notice a very similar bracket in the front. Those click in, and that basically supports when the paper comes down and through. Now we've got a square bracket that has two guides. And if you're following along in the book, it's pretty much in the same sequence. So these two plastic connectors connect the side rail brackets to the paper catch assembly. So we'll slide this in. This one's a little easier, the hole's a little bit bigger. Place these on. Come up like so. And you can either kick it out a little bit and then put these on top. And what that does is it basically has three different settings. One if you want it to come out straight onto the floor, one if you want to lead it towards the back, and then the third setting's down. If you're running a lot of length, the down setting works pretty well. So you click this up, and the last but not least is our last little metal bracket here. And there's another sleeve you'll see in here that the metal bracket will slide into. And once again, since I'm on camera, this is going to take longer than it normally does. And then once that's on and in position, that's going to click into the very front bracket. So that kind of either sits up like this or down if you want to kind of angle the paper towards the floor. Or when it's out of position, you kind of can sit up like this. There's a couple small Velcro tabs that hold it up and into position. The reason why I put this on last is, as you can see earlier, walking around the printer trying to set it up, this can tend to kind of get in the way a teeny bit. If you want to kind of flush it, it'll kind of stay even with the printer. A lot of places that kind of sits here most of the time. The final two pieces and components of the setting up the paper catch and holder storage are the two paper guides. And these also have two different settings to them. So they'll click in. You'll see two brackets in the printer. More on the 9900, but the 79 series has two. And these will either come out to kind of guide the paper out, or you kind of click them and they'll hang down, so when you're going around they're not in the way. These do not come into play when you put the SpectraProofer on the machine. It's going to kind of do the guiding itself when the SpectraProofer is on there. So we'll put these two on. And a nice game that we usually play here is whether the machine will be done charging ink before you get the paper stand assembled. It's kind of like a race against the clock. I think I did okay. I've made it a 57% of ink charging. So the last thing I usually put on is the documentation basket. It clicks on the side. Clicks on, and that's where you kind of store your books. It's just a real easy place to keep everything. That way you know where it's at if you ever need to reference it. Put the stuff back in its leather binder and put it in. So we're going to wait for the ink to complete charging. The assembly of the printer is done. And then we're going to go through a head alignment and a nozzle check. Our Epson 7900 is now done charging its ink delivery system. So it's going to come up with a message that says paper out, load paper. That's the first thing we're going to do to it. So we're going to have our spindleless paper holders, the roll of single weight matte paper that came with the printer, and this will have an outer protective roll, so don't worry if you tear it. The paper's inside this outer protective layer. So once you get that off, you've got your single weight mat. Most Epson papers come in either a 2-inch core or a 3-inch core. The paper holder, spindleless paper holder, has a 2-inch and 3-inch setting. When we go to 3 inches, you'll see the knobs will pop out. When we go to 2, they go in. This is a 2-inch core. Take the gray handle, slide it out 90 degrees, place it on the paper. What's nice about the Epson is it's got a nice little feed area where you actually don't have to mess around like the old days with the paper spindles. On the larger printers and the heavier paper, it really is good because you can kind of rest it up there before you put the paper. Paper goes in with the end facing out towards you. Going to lock these in place. Pop the top of my cover up. There's an unlocking mechanism for the paper guide, so if you had 13-inch, 17-inch, 24-inch, you unlock it down and this becomes a free assembly. So we basically take our paper, we roll it back into position, and you'll have two white guides that show you where it goes. You slide it till it's flush up against the right-hand side, and the left-hand side is tight, and you lock it. So now the paper roll is in. You'll take the paper, bring it towards the front of the printer, and then feed it down the front. You'll see a kind of a brushed aluminum and stainless steel. It's going to go between the brushed aluminum and the printer and in front of the stainless steel. There's also a small guide line carved into the stainless steel. So you'll kind of ride it down there. It's a very smooth stainless steel. So the paper will slide down in there. And then once the paper's in, you can press the top right button, which is the paper release. So it's release, catch, release, catch. It's a white button, top right of the display, next to the menu bars. It'll say the paper's released. Then you can slide the paper in more and get it lined up with that guide a little better. I usually say to at least see the paper come out of the bottom a little bit of the printer. So if you can see that, I kind of get it to where it's on the guide. Down at the bottom, it'll look pretty flush to the edge of the printer. Once I'm there, I click the button again and then press the pause key. And the machine's going to go through measuring the paper and feeding the paper. So it's going to go feed paper back up into the spindle, then feed it forward. The heads will go out and check the size of the media. And then after that's all done, it's going to ask me what type of media I put in the printer. So you'll see it'll start to feed paper down. Then it'll feed paper back. It's checking for the straightness of the paper path. If you do get the paper skewed here, you'll get an error. And it'll tell you that the paper's not loaded properly. But if you usually go on that guide and get it down to the bottom and see that it's straight, it'll go through the first pass. So the heads are going back and forth, measuring the paper right now. Once this process starts, you're pretty much okay to close the front cover. The front cover is handy because it has a measuring area, so you can kind of see what size paper you've got. I've got 24-inch paper in right now. It's going to say, first time it comes up, it kind of knows that you've put plain paper in it, so it's going to ask me, it's a roll paper, is it plain paper? I'm going to hit the OK button. Once I hit the OK button, I'm then ready to do my first nozzle check. So the way the system works is it's got a gray area, almost like a remote control on your TV. It's got right arrows, up, down arrows, and side arrows. So what I'm going to do is the right arrow is the menu. I click it once, and it brings me to the menus that have different setup utilities for the printer. I click down once, and I'm on test print. I click to the right, and it goes to nozzle check, which is the first level of the test prints. I click to the right again, and then I say print. And this will be the first print that the printer prints out. They're out fully tested in the factory. And what we're going to look for here is that we make sure that the heads are completely charged and the ink is in the system. It's a fairly quick print. It's maybe about 1.5 inches long. You'll see the heads go back and forth. You'll see the paper start to feed. It'll do the nozzle check and then cut it. Paper's going to fall down in our catch basket. And we're going to look at it. And what you're going to see is you're going to see all the colors, starting with the cyan on the left and ending with the light magenta on the right. And what we're looking for is it's a square pattern with stepped areas. And what you're going to do is make sure that all the steps going up and down on the horizontal lines are smooth and there's no breaks in them. This is also in the manual. So you'll look at these. The yellow's a little hard to see sometimes, but what you're looking for is a consistent vertical and horizontal lines, nice and smooth. You'll see the ones that are missing if they are. This came up fine. First nozzle check is fine. So once the nozzle check's done, we can do a head alignment. Now the head alignment is automatically done, but we have to tell it how we're going to use the printer and then tell it how we're going to line the printer. So once again, I'm going to go to my menu area. I'm going to click to the right, scroll down till I get to head alignment. Click to the right again to engage it. Don't worry about the paper thickness. It already knows from the first time. I'm going to say alignment, which is one step down. I'm going to say auto. And what we usually do is you do the Uni-D and then the Bi-D all. So Uni-D is one directional, all of them, and then bi-directional is both ways with all the inks. Now this is automatic. It'll go out and read the head, make any adjustments it needs to. So this takes between 5 and 10 minutes. So we're going to let it go through its cycle, and then we'll show you what the printouts look like. Okay, welcome back. We've just gone through the nozzle check and head alignment procedure. So we'll get in depth on these as part of this. So we've got our nozzle checks good. The head alignments, the unidirectional is a smaller alignment pattern. The bidirectional all is a larger alignment pattern. But once we've got these two patterns out and the nozzle check looks clean, we're ready to start the printing process. So just as a wrap up, the printer is now all set up. one thing I'd like you to do is that UPC code that we cut off earlier, place that in your leather-bound user guide. Special note would be to take out the quick reference guide, and there's a small plastic hook. Just attach that to the side of the printer, and this hooks on. It's got most of the utilities on there, so it's just really easy without having to open up the big manual and taking it out. The second thing that's really important inside this is the preferred service guide. And the preferred service guide basically gives you the ability to call in with a unit ID number. They'll also ask for your serial number, which is enclosed on the cardboard UPC we cut out. So that's why it's important that that's in there. And then you can get your full support. DTD is your Tier 1 support. You call us and we'll support it there. But if there's a hardware problem, we have to log a service call into Epson, which is very rare. But then you just take your leather-bound book that's got everything in it, put it down here in the catch tray. Okay, we've unpacked our plate curing unit, and there's a few basic components to the plate curing unit when it comes out of the box. We have the plate curing unit itself, 220, and we've got the two receiver input and output trays. So the smaller one goes in the front, the larger one in the back, and these are going to be to guide the plate in and out of the curing unit. We're going to mount those. And then we also have the guide, the CTP guide that goes on the 7900 to keep the plates linear going through the Epson 7900. We've got a small stand that kind of braces the back tray, and we've got some temperature guides that we put in to make sure that the temperature's okay inside the plate curing unit. Also, we have an alignment kit, and this is what to really align the plates on the 7900, very important part of the whole system. So we'll get into that in depth later on, but we just want you to see the plate curing unit, what it looks like. We're going to install the trays next, and then it's going to be ready for this part of it to be ready to fire up and go. Hi again, it's Sal Passanisi, Director of Proofing and Pro Media Technologies here at Digital Technology Group. We have basically just completed the mechanical setup and some alignment tests on the 7900. For a full line demonstration, we're going to go in another video that'll be including lining up the plate setting guide in the 7900 and actually firing up the baking unit, calibrating it, and then running our first set of plates. For any more information on this or any of the full line of certified proofing solutions that we currently offer, full line of Epson Graphics, Pro Graphics dealers that we are, please feel free to give us a call at our toll-free number. And once again, thanks for watching the demonstration.